All right. The last podcast I did was about my cataract surgery, and for some reason the recording stopped halfway through the my podcast and my rant. So I'm going to do a podcast today, and I'll get back to that story afterwards. But I wanted to have a pretty short, maybe 20-30 minute discussion about something dear to my heart, which would be my parents. This week was their anniversary, and I wanted to do this podcast talking about my folks, my Russian Jewish parents that risked everything back in 1978 to get us to this country. And how my mind and my heart and my work ethic was created was through watching them and learning from them. So I wanted to just do a podcast so y'all get a little bit of an idea of what my parents have instilled in me. So I guess we should just rewind back to 1978 or so. We are from a city called Zhytomyr, which is, I think, as of a month ago, was probably pretty demolished during this war or whatever you'd like to call it. Um, so I guess technically some people would say that we're Ukrainian, but back then it was Russia. We are Russian. We will always be Russian Jews. And if you ask pretty much any Russian or Ukrainian Jew that's out here why are they here, they'll all give you a similar story. They escaped communism. They escaped anti-Semitism for most part, and anti-Semitism from neighbors. So again, we're back to 1978, so I'm just going to give you a little breakdown of what I experienced. And I've talked about this in other podcasts. I've talked about this on podcasts before this war or invasion or whatever you think this is. It's funny because one of the podcasts I talked about this, All Roads Lead Here, I discussed this type of situation um, in my stories literally a few days before Russia invaded Ukraine. And the guy reached out to me and he's like, wow, you literally talked about certain aspects of this and what is your feeling on it? And I gave him a breakdown of how I feel about the whole situation. And so uh, back in 1978, I was in 77, I was in first grade. And you're a child, you're 7, 8 years old. You don't understand what religion is, what you are. You're just a kid trying to have a good time. In school, I got bullied and beat up by older kids because in Russia back then, the entire school was all 10 grades in one school, in one building. It's not like it's here where you have elementary school, junior high, high school, and so on. You are all in the same school. And being a little Jewish kid, I got picked on and bullied by Ukrainian kids, and they would use the word Žid, which is equivalent of the N word for Jews. Didn't know why. I would go home crying, wondering why this was going on. This went on for a good while, and I remember going with my dad because my parents always talked about that we are leaving Mother Russia for America, США. We're leaving CCCP for США, was США was United States, USA. So I would go with my dad to the KGB offices. I don't know, once a month, twice a month, whatever it was, and basically for him to see if they would give us the right to leave. So basically, we're getting vetted. Everybody had to leave the country, had to be vetted. Still do. I mean, you watch a show like 90 Day Fiance, and the process these people go through just to get to this country to marry somebody. You have 90 days to marry somebody, or you're going back. This is why most immigrants have this big problem with illegal immigration. You could call it whatever you want. Oh, undocumented worker. You're right. Undocumented people. Yes, exactly. Okay, you're too sensitive to call it illegal. When it is illegal, it's illegal to come across the border. It is, and to try to stay here, it's illegal. So why can't you call that? Okay, so safe space people listening to this, undocumented people, right? Every other country's citizens that come here have to be vetted if they want to stay here. Down to Canadians. Talk to your Canadian friends that are here on a work visa, and when their work visa runs out, what they have to do. They have to go back. And this is work visa, meaning they're coming here to work and pay taxes on it. So most countries, you cannot just boop, I'm just over the border because it's right next to me. Try to cross the border in Europe without a passport. Go ahead. Try to cross over to Canada without a passport. I was detained for almost 2 hours a few years ago going to Canada at the airport, where I flew to legally with a passport. So, but my Canadian friends have this, oh, America's evil, their immigration laws, blah, 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 bullshit. If you have a DUI, you can't go to Canada. You have to have a passport to go to Canada. But they have no problems judging us when we're like, wait a minute, if you can't come to this country without a passport or without legal paperwork or documentation, it's idiotic. Anyways, I'm done with that rant and bullshit. So we were on the waiting list for over a year and a half, being vetted before we could leave. I started second grade, and first grade I was learning English. Yes, first grade in Russia, I was learning English. Second grade, we were forced to learn Ukrainian. And I shit you not, you could ask my parents, if you know my parents, I hated it. I hated learning it because to me it was an ugly language. And I would come home crying. I didn't want to learn it, and I'm just a kid. I don't know any better. It just to me, it seemed like it was Russian, but broken Russian, because I know Russian. Why am I learning something that's like broken Russian? You know what I mean? Like a whole different foreign language? Sure, I get it. So the day came, the interesting thing is when I would used to go with my dad to the KGB office, I would hear what these agents would say to my dad and bully him, and what is my dad going to do? He's not going to fight them because they'll beat him up, they'll kill him, they'll put him in jail, whatever. So he dealt with it, and he's a strong, proud Russian, with a lot of attitude, but he had to bite his lip. What is he going to do? And then the day came when we were allowed to leave Mother Russia for United States. Our families didn't agree with it. Our families were like, "Oh, you're traitors." Everyone we knew, "You're traitors. You're leaving for the enemy." And they're like, "No." My parents were like, "No, we're leaving to better our life and better our life for our son." And they were strong enough to do it. They saved up the little money that they were already making in this communist country. They were sick of being persecuted for being Jewish, even by neighbors. We had a family friend, Jewish, who during World War II, his Ukrainian neighbor killed his mom and his sister basically in front of him when he was 8 years old. He killed this Ukrainian person, killed 60 Jewish neighbors. These are the things that nobody talks about. Nobody, especially right now. This is what my last podcast cut off. It was weird. My whole rant cut off. Here's my problem, and it's a problem for a lot of immigrants here from that region, especially Jewish people. And you're listening to you going, "Get over it. It was so long ago." You can't say "get over it. It was so long ago," because are you telling me that then you should tell black people to get over the shit that this country put them through? Should Japanese people get over the fact that they were putting basically in concentration camps by this country, or nuked by this country? No, this is history. You need to learn from history. You need to learn history before you spout your mouth ignorantly, right? So, for all these people waving flags without knowing history and the whole situation, except to what's being fed to them through the media, is Putin wrong? 100% he's wrong. Is Putin evil? 100% he's evil. God knows what his hit list is, right? And what his death list is. We don't know. He's very pro-Russia. He's very about him. He's doing it the right way. It's about him. Before this happened, his approval rating in Russia was 90%. And with Russians in this country, it was out of control how the approval rating was on him, except when this invasion happened. Because most Russians, if not all, don't agree with the invasion because you're killing your neighbors, you're killing your own people. But now you're having brother fight brother, sister, friends, family fight each other because of just the border, right? But learn why this is happening, and learn about Zelensky, and learn about how he's put in office. But nobody does because, like, oh, it's an invasion. Well, for all of you people that are so stuck on this, waving this yellow and blue flag, which it should be because, there's innocent people dying in a beautiful country being destroyed. Where's your Syrian flag? Where's your Iraqi flag? Where's your Iranian flag? Where's your pick a country in Africa flag? Oh wait, those countries are irrelevant right now because they're not in the social media eye, right? Do you remember the Syrian refugee situation? You think Syria is back to normal? Is it? No, it's not. But it's not cool right now to talk. It's not clout chasing right now by putting, for every person that's got a Ukrainian flag next to their little avatar, put a Syrian one there. Pick a country that's being bombarded by another country right now, or the leaders stealing money from their citizens and starving them to death. North Korea, for instance, still around. China probably has the worst human rights issues out there. Nobody talks about it. Our NBA players won't even talk about it because their shoes are made there. Let's be realistic, right? God forbid. What's going on with Taiwan? But that's not cool right now. What's cool is this. You know what's not cool? That in Los Angeles and God knows how many cities, there are people dying on the streets of starvation. LA looks like a third world country with tent cities everywhere. I just walked over to 7-Eleven. Tent cities everywhere. Never get a chance to buy somebody a sandwich, buy them a drink. I don't buy them alcohol. I just buy them food. Here's some food. Boom, here you go. But we just sent $50 billion to Russia and to Russia. Oh, definitely not to Russia, to Ukraine, right? Can you imagine how much $50 billion could do here with the starvation problem, inflation, and everything else in this country? $50 billion, you break that down, you could probably give each family $10,000, and their lives would be turned completely upside down and on the skyrocket up. Yeah, right? I mean, do the math. I haven't done the math. This is just kind of like I'm spouting because I'm spouting. But God forbid we care about the people here, the veterans here, the homeless problem here. Take that $50 billion and reinvest it into your own citizens. God forbid. God forbid. Think whatever you want about whoever the politician is. Every single politician is at fault here because they only care about ratings, they only care about what looks good, and they only care about the vote. Democrat, Republican doesn't really matter. So, enough of my tangent because I've dealt with some serious anti-Semitism from Ukrainian people. Down to when I was in Canada. After my detainment in Canada for being Russian and my beard, when I was at a boathouse party, and a Ukrainian dude came up to me, and when we introduced each other, he asked me, are you a Russian Jew? And I'm like, yeah. And then he proceeded to make fun of me and bully me around the rest of the night, making Jew jokes, things like that. And it reminded me of how it was when I was in Russia, in that region, with the Ukrainian kids. Not Russian kids, Ukrainian kids. My dad, when he was in the military, went through a lot. So, do we believe in this war? No way. My parents and I talk about this all the time. But they also remind me of places like Donbass and other places where if you speak Russian, before this happened, if you spoke Russian in cities like Donbass and places like that, you were getting butchered by, no, it's not a conspiracy. There's a lot of neo-Nazi groups in Ukraine. It's not a conspiracy. Go do your research. Don't just listen to your news outlet, whichever it is, Fox, CNN, MSNBC, whoever. Go do your research. There's a lot of neo-Nazi groups out there. And if you spoke Russian, you were getting hurt pretty bad. So there's a lot of underlying issues there, down to all those labs that were originally, the first attack by Russia was on those labs. Why were there so many Western labs in Ukraine? No, wait, nobody that talks about this stuff. Not conspiracies, facts. Not conspiracies, facts. But it's not cool to talk about stuff like that. And it's not cool to bring up, Syrian refugee problem. You don't even have to look that far over. What is going on in South America? What is going on? Let's take that $50 billion and reinvest it into our neighbors down south and try to help Venezuela, Mexico, whomever. No. We got to go all the way across. And why? Why is it so important to protect Ukraine? Who knows what and what do they have, right? I mean, that's the reality of it. I mean, if you really think about it. If we don't care about our own citizens or our own neighbors, why do we care about that? Why? What's the reasoning? And remember that nuclear plant attacked by Russia that everybody was so afraid is going to melt down? That was what, a month and a half ago? Nothing's happened, right? It's got to blow over, didn't it? Why? Was there more to this than meets the eye? When this first happened, my uncle, who's here, and the families that called us traitors and everything else while we were leaving, they're all here now. How? My parents, who risked it all, their lives, our lives, livelihood for sure, to come here, made sure they sponsored and helped the rest of our family come here. One of them being my aunt and uncle and cousins. My uncle was a military person. They were on the waiting list for over 5 years getting vetted. Over 5 years being vetted. Yes, vetted. Yeah, you can't just come over here from other countries like that. Vetted for 5 years. He called my dad on the second day, and he goes, just so you know, there's way more to this story. And he was talking to his friends in Ukraine and Russia. And he said, there's more to this story than meets the eye. There's going to be a lot of propaganda. And he said there's going to be a lot of self-destruction pointed at Russia. He said it. He said it day 2. He said there's going to be a lot of those groups that are rogue groups. Not even saying it's necessarily the government or the Ukrainian military. There are going to be rogue groups. They're going to be destroying towns to make sure it looks worse than it is. And then all the videos start coming out. Interviews with villages talking about how these rogue groups were coming into town and on tanks and destroying villages and homes and things like that. But enough of this tangent. It just upset me because I'll get back to my cataract story after this. So my parents risked it all. When we finally got the go-ahead to leave, we packed everything we could, grabbed whatever belongings that we deemed important for us to leave with. My grandfather gave me $300. He was a farmer. He was making good money. He was a blacksmith. And he gave me $300 to, on my trip out He most of the family knew they were never going to see us again. So at the border, it was insane because we were kind of warned about this, that at the border, the KGB agents would be going through everyone's stuff. So some people brought money to bribe them with. Typical, gay vodka bottles to have these KGB agents kind of go away. People that had, let's say, like diamonds, they would swallow them in little baggies. You try to hide the money wherever you could, like in your little makeup kits, underneath the makeup kits, things like that. Needless to say, at the border, the KGB agents took my $300. They found it, they took it. We had to sleep at the train station overnight. It's scary, Now you don't have a home. Now you're traveling through different countries to get where you need to go. And you're spending all your life savings. It's not like there's a safety net of like, oh, we'll help you. It's not like here, like, oh, you walk into whatever, like a social, social worker office or whatever, and they'll point you in the right direction in some ways, or a homeless shelter. That's no such thing. There's no such thing. It's just you against the environment and the people around you. And you have to be on guard. You can't go to sleep. You're going to wake up and all your bags are gone. And then what? And then what are you going to do? So we slept at the train station. We traveled. It's interesting because I actually have a whole box of coins from every country we traveled through. I have this metal box still sitting in my closet with all these coins from Russia, Czechoslovakia, Poland, you name it. Italy, Austria, and our travels were interesting because we traveled on a train through various countries until we got to Austria. And in Austria, we lived for a month and a half. And think about this, Russian parents, not knowing the language, trying to survive, and you want to talk about strength. That's my parents. Strength and never wavered, and to travel, to just up and we're leaving and we're going to a whole different world, to a whole different country that's considered the enemy. And you don't know when you get there how it's going to be. Are you going to get shunned? Are you going to be sent back? Because you're leaving a country that's basically called you a traitor and doesn't want you back. One, they don't want you back because you're a traitor. Two, you're a Jew, so God forbid you go back to a country that doesn't want you anyways. So we lived in Austria for a month and a half, and I'll go more into detail in another podcast about all the fun and interesting things that happened in Austria, from our first trip to a supermarket to living in a whorehouse, above a whorehouse. Might as well save that for later because they're really good stories. And then we traveled to Italy and lived in Italy for almost 3 months. 3 months. Russian Jew immigrants traveling, not knowing Italian, not knowing the country, obviously. Lived there we lived in a little community of immigrants, so at least all kind of unite and look out for each other and things like that. Wound up going to the Colosseum as a child, going to all the beautiful areas of Italy and the history. I wish I was older so I could appreciate it that much more. Because as a little kid, you're going like, oh, this building's all broken. But my favorite movie was Spartacus growing up, with Kirk Douglas. So I loved seeing the Colosseum just because it kind of reminded me of that. But we got here to United States eventually. We got here March 6th of 1979, and my parents quickly jumped into assimilating with the country. So what they did was they went and took, I think it was at least a year of night school to learn the language. I would sit in school with them and I would sit and draw Spider-Man. Spider-Man was my favorite superhero, still is. And And every night they worked during the day. My dad was a machinist. My mom was working at Prudential Insurance Company. And at night they went to night school to learn English. I don't know if it was every night, but it was, it was a good amount. Because their whole thing was, we're going to do it the right way. We're not trying to be sneaky. We're not trying to be shady like a lot of Russians that come here. We didn't have mob connections or Mother Russia connections where, we kind of can go off that. It was them working their ass off to do it the right way, being generous, saving up enough money to bring the rest of the family over here. My mom's sister, my dad's brother and their families, my dad's sister, they're all here. Unfortunately some of them passed, but they're all here and their families here because of my parents, who they called traitors when we were leaving. But my parents are all about giving and working hard and believing that you're not going to take your money to the grave with you. You're not. So why not share your whatever? I'm just going to say share the wealth, but we're not rich. Definitely not share the wealth, but share what you can, help when you can, and be respectful. That's what I was always taught. And these are the things that I stand out for me when people talk about me. Oh, he's generous. He works hard. He's giving. Those are all the things that my parents did, and I watched them do. And they instilled in me. But it's not like they sat me down. It's like, you got to do this, and this. No, I just watched them. And I understood these things are important. And that's what makes me so proud of them. How hard they worked. In the worst possible situations. Being persecuted, being ridiculed. And then going like, we're getting out of here. And leaving. So they are proud Russians, proud Russian Jews, and they should be, because what they went through and who they helped is beyond words. It's priceless. So when I watch them, so the things that I do, it's just reflection of what they've done from the moment as a child, I saw and could actually understand. And in my head, compute. Look, my parents are amazing. They're hard workers. They are strong, proud people. And down to everything that's happening now. I'll go over there next door, and they live next door to me, and talk to them about. And now my dad, getting older, is like sharing more and more stories from Russia, which are insane stories that I've never heard. He's shared stories with Misha that I had never even heard. She's like, tell me, your dad told me this. I'm like, why didn't you tell me that story? What the hell? Yeah, they are amazingly strong people. My dad daily wakes up at 5:30 in the morning. At 6, he's going for walks. He walks and he's constantly fixing up the house. When I was in the hospital for 2 months, they fixed up my whole house. They came and cleaned my house. They were my lifeline they still are in so many ways. They're my lifeline. Just how Russian parents are. Every Russian person I know who's my age or close to my age, or my friends, their parents, if they're alive, they're still their lifeline. Because that's what Russians and Ukrainians and Jewish people do. You can say whatever you want about Jews. Jews don't run the fucking world. Jewish religion is probably the smallest in the world. What Jews do, though, they stick together and they're family oriented. And if that's a negative, then something, go fuck yourself. Maybe you should be more about that. And the fact that Jews stick together because they're family oriented and they understand education, they understand respect, they understand not preaching their beliefs onto others, because Jews don't. And if that's a problem, well, again, go fuck yourself. And that's just what my parents are, and that's what I've learned. That's what they've instilled to me. We didn't go to synagogue. My bar mitzvah was basically a family friend who's, I don't even know I don't think he was even a rabbi who did the bar mitzvah for us. I got, just to give you an idea, The first camp I went to, it was a Jewish camp, and after 2 weeks, I was thrown out of the camp because I questioned everything. Why do we need to wear these little beanies? Why do we need to wear these little robes? I don't understand. I don't get it. I don't want to stand and chant in the morning, we want Messiah now. I don't want to learn Hebrew. And they had enough of me. After 2 weeks, I don't know, I was, 9, 10, 11 years old. They tossed me. They called my parents and said, he cannot be in our camp anymore. He's too strong-headed. And I was thrown out of the camp. Am I a proud Russian Jew? Heck yeah. Hell yeah. Do I think some of that shit in that Jewish camp was ridiculous? Fuck yeah. So it was done. I was like, they're like, you're out. We don't need you. You're too much of a headache. And I was tossed, which is fine with me. I don't care. I could be a proud Jew without having to know Hebrew and all that other shit that they were trying to stick down my gullet. So yeah, I wanted to do a podcast about my parents because of their anniversary this week. And everything even to a few days ago, they've done for me. They do so much for me. And how they've embraced Misha's son. Because they weren't sure. They're like, oh, you're dating a girl. Well, my mom knows what Misha does. Our dad doesn't. But she has a special needs son. Are you sure? I'm like, yeah, he's wonderful. And then when they met him, they're like, when's Bodhi coming over? When's Bodhi coming over? And then he comes over and plays with my dad and wrestles with my dad. And my dad is a hardcore, hard-headed Russian. So every time he makes Bodhi use his left hand because we're trying to get him to get it because he's got cerebral palsy. So his left side is iffy. His left leg works pretty well. His left arm is iffy, so whenever we're playing with him, like, use your lefty. My dad literally will not let him play with toys unless he uses both hands. And this is the way Russians use your left hand, use your left arm. My dad, that's how Russians teach, It's like, it's like, in Mother Russia, how do you teach a kid how to swim? You throw him in the pool. Well, there's no pools in Russia. Throw him in the lake. So that's what my dad does. He's very much, and they're worried for him. My dad always brings up, are you guys working on his left arm, in his hand? Yes. My mom's like, how is his health? So they're very concerned, and now he loves them. He's like, I want to go see grandma and grandpa all day, and I'm like, no, leave them alone. I don't want to go over there. I don't want to talk to those Russians right now. I don't want to talk to those Russian Jews. I'm channeling my inner Ukrainian. No, нет, русские жидяры, нет. Anyways, the last story I'm going to talk about is the one that was cut off on my last podcast, and it's about what I went through and why I'm so passionate about everything that's happening and how people decide to wave little flags here and there without knowing any history, without knowing any story. And hopefully I shed a little light on to people who do that. Learn your history before you wave other countries' flags. Same way you judge those redneck white trashes pieces of shit who wave the Confederate flag and calling them ignorant and not knowing their history or not caring about history. Do the same thing before you wave other countries' flags. Learn your history, because you know where you are? You're that redneck, ignorant piece of shit who doesn't know the whole story. So you're waving a flag because it's cool in the news right now. Get over yourself. It's not about you and you needing that attention of like, look, I give a shit. So when I was getting my eye surgery this week, my nurse had an accent, and she had an accent like she was, from Russia or whatever, Russian accent. So, and she said my name perfectly, Vyacheslav, which I'm like, okay, she's definitely from there, but I'm gonna leave it alone, you never know, especially these days. So, I was wearing my Two Russians, One America hat, and the doctor walks up. I think it was an anesthesiologist. Oh my God, I can't even get that word out. Anyways, he goes, what is that hat? And I go, well, my fiance and I were doing a YouTube channel called Two Russians, One America, where we're two Russians and American, and we're doing just fun things. And he leaves. He goes, oh, that's really cool, and he leaves. So the nurse now goes to me. So where are you from? And I go, Zhytomyr, a small city next to Kiev. She goes, oh, and she goes, and you call yourself Russian? And you think, or she says something like, you think of yourself as Russian? And I go, and I knew that was, she's trying to be that, right? So I go to her, yes, I'm Russian. I'm a Russian Jew. She's like, oh, okay. And then I'm like, oh, okay, let me just kind of calm the situation down. And I go to her, where are you from? From Kiev. So I'm like, oh, she's definitely Ukrainian. How long have you been here? 20 years. Oh, okay, cool. And then the physiologist comes back and we start talking some more. And he starts talking to me in Russian. I'm like, whoa, that's really cool. And he tries to talk to her in Russian. She goes, I don't understand. I only speak Ukrainian. And I'm like, there you go. Boom, boom, boom. So he was talking to me in Russian big time. And he goes, you're from Zhytomyr? He goes, I've actually know a lot about Zhytomyr. And then he starts talking to me in English so she could understand. And I know where he was going with this. I'm not stupid. And I'm sure she's not stupid. So she understood where this conversation was heading. And he goes to me, there's a big there was a big Jewish community in Zhytomyr. And I go, yeah. And a lot of them left because how the Ukrainians were treating the Jewish community. And he goes to me, oh, I know. Yeah, I go, yeah. So most of Russians and Ukrainians that came out around the time we came around here were Jewish because they just couldn't deal with what was happening there. From the communism of Russia to the anti-Semitism of Ukrainian people. And it wasn't Russians because every Russian I met here has no problem. Every Russian in the industry I've met, and I've asked them down the line, and we could go down the line from Nikita Von James to Nika Noir to Trina Rush to you name it, who are all my Russian friends in this industry. John Strong, not one is ever inkling of that mindset. They didn't even know. Whoa, that went on? Yes, because in their mind and in their family's mind, they were never taught that. So, when I was talking to the guy, I go, it was awful there as a child, getting picked on and names me, and I'm like, I didn't care, she wants to hear this. She started this, and I imagine maybe he saw it, maybe he's dealt with her before, especially when she's like, I don't speak Russian, I only speak Ukrainian, So, needless to say, and I can't blame her for it, but my conspiracy mind. She was putting my IV in and she poked me 4 times, for 3 different areas 4 times. And again, my conspiracy was like, this is a Ukrainian doing this to a Russian Jew. It wasn't, because when I was in the hospital for 2 months, they called me a hard stick. In fact, I had a bracelet that was a different color for, he's a hard stick. So she went through my right hand twice, which hurts, but when you're used to the pain having so many IVs in you and things like that, it is what it is. It's a pinch, it's a stab, it is. And then the ones that hurt more are the ones in the soft meat, which would be she did it inside of my forearm, which hurt because then she's like digging for the vein. Couldn't get it, and then she switched over to the left arm and she put it right above the wrist on the side. That hurt like a mother. I actually had to grab onto the railing. That one hurt a lot. But I'm not gonna, she was very professional. She was actually very nice and she was very professional. She was probably offended by the fact that I called myself Russian. But I'm sorry, I am. I was born in Mother Russia. We escaped Mother Russia. My parents, with all their strength, left all their strength, all the money, and whatever they could, they did for the family, for the entire family, bringing majority of the people here. And you want to call us Ukrainian because now it's Ukraine, go right ahead. We're Ukrainian Jews. We're proud of where we came from. Um, we're not proud of this war. It's disgusting, no matter what the politics are of it. Innocent people are dying because people on the streets have no idea. And even if whatever the beliefs are, they don't deserve the butchering that's going on over there, the destruction. To destroy such a beautiful country for political reasons is crazy to me. But again, you're dealing with very hard-headed, very strong, hard-headed people. In that region, Russians, Ukrainians are very hard-headed, very egotistical, very I'm right, you're always wrong, and that's what's happening there. For whatever the situation is with between Zelensky and Putin, Putin's wrong. There's no reason to attack a country like that. You talk it out. You can't talk it out. You keep trying to talk it out. You do sanctions. You don't attack and destroy. But the rest of the world does the same thing. I'm sorry, they do. You know, did we need to stick our nose into Iraq? We did not. Did we need to stick our nose into Afghanistan, which backfired? We did not. So before people in this country point fingers at Russia, they need to point fingers at ourselves as well. War is war. Wars are ugly. People die, sadly, but they do. And there are a lot of needless wars that every country has had. Every country has had. And there have been leaders in every country that could give two shits about their own people or their neighbors. Honestly, look at now. We have a president that could give two shits about its own people or its neighbors. Only cares about the politics of it all. And that's the truth. Trump didn't care about its own. He used that as a platform. I care about America. And he did bring the economy back up until 2020, where his ego couldn't control his stupid mouth. But before that, it was good. No wars, no people falling off planes in Afghanistan. And the economy was booming. And then pandemic came and his big mouth came. And that was the downfall of Trump and his craziness. But now we have a president who doesn't care about his citizens, even no matter what he says, if you could understand what he says, or its neighbors, but cares about these days only one thing, which is crazy. Two things, sorry, about the Brittany Griner, the person that should know the rules of other countries and doesn't, and we're worried more about a WNBA player. Sorry, she's not a WNBA player. She's a basketball player playing in Mother Russia. That's why she was there. She was playing basketball in Russia. And what did she have? She had vapes with THC in it, which are illegal in Russia, and got caught with it at the airport. So what part of that is so hard to understand that, like, you break laws in other countries, you have to serve time for breaking those laws? Russia and other countries are not sanctuary states like fucking California. Oh, you're from another country, you break the law, sorry, we won't deport you, or we'll coddle you, idiots. Russia's not like that. Russia is pretty, especially right now, everything that's happening. So it's horrible for her, but some fucking know your laws to countries that you're not traveling to and visiting. You're playing there, so you're there for a while, and you know the law. Anyways, I just wanted to make this positive podcast about my parents, but I went off on a tangent because we are proud Russian Jews, and sometimes our emotion gets the best of us because we're proud. It's like people that are proud of the United States, and when somebody shits on the United States, they go off on a tangent and defend the country. There are a lot of people in this country that don't like this country, who've never traveled outside the borders of this country and shit on this country. And I always tell them, go travel outside the borders of this country, or go talk to an immigrant who risked everything and left families behind to come to this country for better opportunity before you shit on this country. And once you do, and you traveled outside this country to see how bad it is in other parts of the world, you could come to me and tell me. And yes, people in this country should stand up to better this country. They should. But watch how you do it as well. Because if your message is delivered the wrong way, it's going to fall on deaf ears. And the problem is a lot of people in this country deliver the message in the wrong way and it falls on deaf ears. If not, turns people that are borderline will turn against your message. And that's sad on both sides. But that being said, I'm done. I need to clean the house. I need to go edit. It's Saturday morning. I've been up since 6:30 in the morning. Already went for a walk. Popped a 5-hour. That's why I can't stop fucking talking. And that's it. Everybody have a good weekend. I'm going to post this right now. And if it keeps recording, and we go from there. So, for everyone who enjoyed it, keep listening and keep sharing. Let's hope this situation in Ukraine goes away and everything's fine and there's no more death and those two can sit down and discuss it, which we know they won't because they're both egomaniacs. I want the war to stop strictly for two reasons: no more death and no more billions sent to Ukraine that could be spent in this country to better this country and uplift this country's citizens. This is Two Russians, One Podcast, even though today it's One Russian, One Podcast. And we're planning on editing Two Russians, One XPW today. And I'm looking forward to it because I think our first Two Russians, One America YouTube channel episode will be about XPW. And that's it. That's the way the cookie crumbles. And have a wonderful, wonderful, non-violent day.